A very pleasant good evening to those who are joining us online live and those who will subsequently view this episode of our seminar series from the Dr. AMRIE Morris-Patterson G.I.F.T Foundation. This evening, we are once again pleased to join you and pleased to have you with us for yet another discussion in this mental health series. And as advertised, we are looking this evening at the topic, anger, friend or foe? Friend or foe? So we have, as usual, a very qualified panel this afternoon to guide us through this discussion. And to my immediate right, we have Pastor Keith MacDonald. Is the pastor of the Marqua district of Adventist churches, Seventh Adventist churches. And next to him, we have Mrs. Lenora Aki Ambris. She's a school counselor. And I think this is her second time with us on the program. And we have returning with us once again, pleased to have Dr. Elika Matthews, psychologist. So we have a rounded panel, and they're going to share with us from their experience and knowledge this afternoon. When it comes to anger, the caption of the program, deliberately titled Friend or Foe, in a kind of a provocative way, because generally speaking, I would say, anger is something that we look at as a bad thing. But we want to, maybe challenge us a little bit this evening to look at the positive sides of it, or aspects that there may be to it. Are there some things that we should be angry about? Local in St. Vincent, I don't know if it's still on the radio, but I used to hear about this program. What does make you vex? That was what does make you vex? Call-in program, and people would use it to say vent. There are various issues that get them. I guess some persons might say righteously angry. All right. So it says that there are some things that we should probably justifiably be angry about, and there are other things that we should not be angry about. So we're going to explore that and see how we can, grapple with this. Of course, there are some very serious situations. You might recall recent incidents in the news in which persons acted out of anger, and this would have led to serious injury or even death of individuals, right? So and then if you're a driver on the road, every now and then you may encounter road rage, whether in yourself or somebody else, as you travel from place to place. So right off the bat, we want to ask the question: is anger a healthy emotion? If so, why and under what circumstances? And the follow-up question is, when does it become unhealthy? So we might want to look at both of these. When is it healthy, just being angry, or when can it become unhealthy, right? And we'll look at a few, the panelists might cite examples of that. So is it healthy? If so, why and under what circumstances? Try to look at the positive side first.
Right. First, I think we should say, what is anger? What is anger? Anger is characterized by an intense emotion, right? And generally, you would hear the term, you'll hear people say, God gives us emotions, right? He gives us emotions, not for our emotion to control us, but for us to control our emotion. So anger is this intense feelings that you get when somebody does something, whether to irritate you, something that is unfair, something that seems unjust. This emotion activates within you. But what makes the difference is how you deal with that emotion. So I would say that anger can be a healthy emotion because it signals to you that something is wrong or something is unfair. But how you deal with it is what makes the difference. And anger can motivate change. It can motivate, it can signal the individual who did something to you to make you feel angry. They can take a step back and say, what I did irritated that person. And it can help to motivate change in the situation. So that's how I would look at it. Yes, it can be a healthy emotion, but how you handle that emotion is what makes the difference.
All right.
To add to that, this follow-up question on that was, when anger, if anger is a healthy, and how so? When you see injustice, it should get you upset. When you see things not going right and people are treated unjustly, it's not something to smile about. It's not something that we should feel happy about. There's something that should have us upset, angry. But again, how we deal with that anger, as was said before, would be the underlying
issue. Okay, I'll come back to that, but yeah, let's hear from the psychologist.
So I think both of my fellow panelists have outlined that anger is a natural and healthy emotion. When it comes to anger, what makes the difference is the expression. So we have to take into consideration, one, acknowledging that we're angry and being able to express it in a constructive manner. Because I'm pretty sure everybody at some point has been angry for some cause. Me, I experienced road rage just today. So, I was a little angry today. But it's how you express yourself. It's also attached to different emotions. So we have to take into consideration if somebody infringes upon our values, that can make a person angry. Additionally, it can be attached to other emotions. So something makes you extremely sad, but you don't know how to process that sadness. So that now in turn turns into anger. So taking into consideration, yes, anger is a natural emotion, one. Two, how you are expressing that anger. And three, what are the underlying issues that are happening that is contributing to that anger?
Thanks so much for those responses. I sometimes, ask myself, as I mentioned, what does get you vexed? Would you say, this is kind of going a little bit off, but I wonder sometimes if we are, as a society, generally or collectively, if there's too much anger in the society or not enough. No, before you answer that, right, what I mean is, or maybe I should qualify, is there's too much anger over the wrong things and not enough anger over the right things, if I'm putting it. If you understand what I'm saying, is there enough, I sense, and sometimes me myself, I'm thinking, some things happen, right? And I think to myself, honestly, maybe I should be more angry about this situation. It might be triggered by somebody else expressing outrage at something. Maybe like, a child is sexually abused, for example, or, somebody is victimized, somebody gets robbed. And very often, just recently, a friend of mine, he's a farmer, he was telling me how, after his hard work, people came in and just, stole his animals and messed up his crops and so on. And, I'm saying, maybe I should be more angry on his behalf, kind of. But of course, the person who is feeling it and experiencing it, of course, they're going to be, feeling the real heat of it. So I don't really think about that in terms of, are we angry enough about certain things? Why is that? Why aren't we outraged, maybe as outraged as we should be? Or people just trying to keep their cool and not get too upset?
Well, with the content of my job, I can say there is too much anger in the world. On a daily basis, you constantly hear the repercussions of what somebody who was angry would have done to themselves or somebody else. So there is a lot of anger that is not expressed in a proper manner, that is not dealt with in a proper manner. And I would say for myself, there are a lot of things that anger me because of the content I am exposed to within the job that I do, which is to a plus side because in part, some of that anger is what fuels me to be an advocate for mental health. Like advocacy for mental health is one of the main things that I aim to do here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So it has its downsides, horrible sides, but there can be a plus side where it is a motivation to do something more constructive.
That's
So
a good
yes,
point.
there is too much aggressive anger, if I use that word, and too little unhealthy anger. But there are too little of the healthy one because, like I mentioned earlier, anger can motivate change. So that is the healthy one. And anger can also signal or set boundaries, cause you to set boundaries. So if we have more of the healthy anger, we'll see a lot of changes taking place. You mentioned maybe a child is abused. And you get really upset. I mean, a 2-year-old, a 1-year-old, you hear a 1-year-old is sexually abused. That is something to make you angry. Angry to the point that maybe you can have a protest, maybe you can have other things to incite change in the society or bring these perpetrators to justice. So you rally the masses around you, but that is positive anger.
You see, for me, I think it's because a lot of people see anger as a negative emotion. It's always portrayed in the negative light. So if somebody say you are angry, then they're automatically saying something is wrong with you. So that's why I believe a lot of people are afraid to show this emotion, that they are angry because they're thinking, well, it's no good if you're always angry or you're angry about this. Because the truth is, we see things that are happening day to day, day after day. And I'm wondering why people are not really angry about it. You see people just walk past certain things happening and nobody doing anything, nobody saying anything. And for some reason, some people going through certain situation and we stand there and we just look at them without even pitying or helping that individual. Respond to that individual. Because it's not in my corner. It's not in my corner. So this is not my battle to fight. So I'm gonna just step away. I'm gonna just walk away. But anytime injustice, one place is injustice everywhere. Because it's happening to you today, but tomorrow it can come to me. So regardless to who is doing the injustice, who is receiving the injustice, we shouldn't be happy about it. We should be upset about it. We should be angry about it.
Our most perfect example is Jesus Christ, right? Jesus Christ was angry because when he went to his father's temple and he saw these doing all kind of things in his father's temple, he got angry, but he did not sin. So it tells us that yes, we can get angry, but we don't have to sin in doing so. I was also reading where Moses got angry. He got angry at the Pharaoh's pride, Pharaoh's stubbornness, Pharaoh, because a lot of God allows certain plagues to take place because of Pharaoh's hardness of heart. And innocent persons, as a result, was hurt because you have the firstborn of every Egyptian being killed. But this is as a result of Pharaoh's hardness of heart. So yes, you can get angry, but deal with it, as Doc said, constructively to motivate change.
I sense too sometimes that I've heard people say, you don't want to see my wrong side, you know. You don't want to see me back. It's like people want to, they don't like getting upset. It's almost like they're afraid themselves. They're afraid of what will happen when they do get upset. And it reminds me of this cartoon, how is that? Hulk? The Hulk? well, Hulk, what's his name? Steve Banner. Right, he would turn into the Hulk when he got, really, really angry. And I think there was a episode called Anger Management because of that. Right, so sometimes I think people maybe being unsure of how they will be able to manage themselves, their state of mind when they are angry. They maybe use a kind of, I don't know the psychology of that, but it's almost like a defense mechanism to protect themselves and maybe protect other people if they were to really act out their anger. And as is the case, when I come to these things, as I do a little reading as a lay person, I get to understand that there's a difference between anger and rage and resentment. That there's different layers and different nuances to it, right? So there's a lot going on with this whole issue of anger, and I think I want to tie it into the next question, which is asking about whether people are born naturally angry or is it learned, right? How do we look at this? What does our environment, play, for example, in this?
With everything, I think there is a chance for being at a predisposition for. I can't give you the full science on that. That isn't my wheelhouse. But what I can say is anger, aggression can be learned behavior. Looking at how your parents deal with situations, your grandparents deal with situations, people that you respect deal with situations. Additionally, the result that they get from it, that is what can encourage people to engage in aggressive behavior. So if it is that something happens and I start to cuss and carry on, and as a child I'm looking and I'm seeing my parents cursing, carrying on, but they're getting the result of what they want because people are fearful of, that can be a behavior that I learn now is okay, because if I act out, if I'm aggressive, if I get angry, it will get me the result that I'm looking for.
I totally agree that. Because if anger is an emotion, emotions are not developed. The way we deal with those emotions is what is developed. So I believe we are born with the capacity to get angry. But then how we react and so on is what we learn from our neighborhood, our friends, our family, and so on. So children will learn how to react in certain situations when they are angry, basically from those around them, those they come into contact with day after day.
And we look at social influence, the media. They listen to the music, and some of these music are very expressive. And some of the younger persons, they listen to this music and they go and act what they hear. And even in the movies, probably they go and they act. So it's not only in the home environment, but also in the social environment around them, what they listen to, what they look at, that can incite, and they can learn from that and want to pattern after.
So you're touching there on the factors that may account for unhealthy states and expressions of anger. And I always find it a little odd, as you mentioned, music, one of my little pet peeves. But it's music, it's media, it's various cultural expressions. Some people will say, but these things are just entertainment. They don't really have any influence on people. I mean, I listen to music and it don't make me vex. It don't make me want to go out and shoot up the place or
What type of music?
that kind of. No, people will say I listen to hardcore rap, gangster rap, dancehall. The dance. People say I listen to these things and they don't make me want to go and rob and steal and. So how do you address that? Is it that some people are more inclined to be affected? I've heard people actually say or allege that when people want to commit certain crimes, right, they listen to certain type of music. I don't know how true that is.
It comes with maturity. Because there are certain things that I can listen to that will not affect me, but you listen to that same thing and it affects you. So that has to do with maturity because you understand life, you know who you are and what life is about and what you should, and you know wrong from right. So, in a sense, Pastor, instead of me kicking in here, Jesus makes a difference. Amen. Jesus makes a difference. Because, as he said in Ephesians 4:26, be angry and sin not. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. So, because you have that connection with Jesus, you know it's not right to do this. It's not right to go down this road. It's not. But you see, when you don't have that, you don't have persons in your corner who are able to help you and who are able to uplift you. When these things come, it's easy for you to just do what they say.
But to say music does affect your emotions, it's in the understanding of consequences to actions, not necessarily always aggressive music leading to aggressive behavior. Because for me, when I go to the gym, my music is loud, it's lewd, it's inappropriate. You wouldn't believe that's what I am listening to, but in a manner, it gets me pumped. When I need to be relaxed, I listen to gospel, but I don't listen to the average gospel music. So the gospel music I listen to might be on a more upbeat type. I can't listen to these soft, soothing tones because that's not who I am, right? But you can say music can affect you. You can listen to music and you can feel happier. You can listen to certain songs and you can feel sad. Like there's one song I know. I'm not going to sing it because I can't sing well. But when I hear it, it takes me back to a place of sadness because it's one of the only songs I remember from my uncle's funeral. So in that manner, yes, music can affect your emotions. Understanding the consequences of giving into those emotions is what I think in part what would make some of the difference.
I've heard, so we talk about music, but there's also, people play a lot of video games, the movies that we watch. I think probably more than even books, because I don't know how much people read anymore. Not as much as we tend to watch, multimedia. And a lot of the movie content, can be very, very emotive. And some of it rightfully so, because if you watch a movie, for example, dealing with slavery, all right, or depicting the slavery period, and showing how slaves are treated and abused physically, sexually. You can't, if you're a normal person anyway, if you're a normal black person, or maybe black person more than not a race, but that those things would generally make you very upset. All right, some people actually avoid watching those things because they know the kind of emotion that it will trigger. Say, no, I'm not watching that. So those, and you could say that's a positive thing, in that you are, again, rightfully or righteously vexed about that. So similarly, persons will watch different types of action movies where there's what I call just violence, gratuitous violence, or glorifying violence, right? And these things, don't they have some kind of effect on people, especially younger people who watch them?
They do, and you see, most times when we talk about violence and so on, we always touch on music. Because yes, but hardly ever you hear people talk about movies and video games. Because some of these movies and video games, they show some gruesome things. Yeah, and you wonder.
Grand Theft Auto, there's and others.
You're watching this, and there's a lot of rage in some of these games and movies and so on. And it does affect the way we act and the way we behave in certain situations.
There was actually a news item now comes back to mind. A young man last year, somewhere in the UK, I believe, who killed his family. And he was known to be a video gamer. There's some connection. I mean, people don't want to make these kinds of connections sometimes because, there are business interests involved. But persons were making this connection that he had been known to be playing this video game, and there was some difference between him and his family, and so he ended up acting out based on what was going on in the video game, and tragically it ended with the death of his family. So, this whole issue of the environment and where how it impacts individuals. It brings to mind the scripture again, where it says, because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall grow cold. Right, Matthew 24. So how do you? And brings us to our next question. How do you immune yourself or protect yourself from being angry in an angry world? Right?
So
or angry environment.
not immune yourself, but learning emotional regulation. So this is one of the biggest factors, being able to identify the experienced emotion and understanding how to act accordingly. So do you know what happens to you when you get angry? People can tell you, I have a physical reaction. So my heart might start beating fast. My hand might start trembling. My chest might start hurting. Do you understand the things that happen to you right before you get angry? Do you know what are some of your triggers? So what are the things that are going to trigger your anger? And then what do you do after that? Do you give into it? Or do you understand that I need to regulate this situation? I need to step back and say, I need to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, how many ever minutes to try and calm myself down before I address this situation that is making me angry.
Very true. Once you recognize your triggers and your cues, you should be able to deal with it. I normally would use an acronym. Sometimes I tell my children, you use the word zipper, Z-I-P-P-E-R. When somebody does something that upsets you, you use that acronym. Z stands for zip your lip. So instead of reacting right away, you zip your lip. The I stands for identify. What is the problem? What is the problem here? I identify the problem. The P, I pause. Pause, I take a step back. So I'm examining now. I take a step back. So that is the two P's, PP. And the E is you evaluate. And then the R is you reset. At the end of it, once I've done all of this, I zip my lip, I identify the problem, I am in control here. The situation is not in control. I am the one in control. So I pause and I take that mental thing in my head to say, I am not going to make this overcome me. Like I said earlier, it's an emotion and I should control that emotion. And at the end of it, when you reset, you say, thank God I've done it. I did not get angry. I did not blow up. So if we just use that simple acronym, it should be able to help us once we identify all of our cues and our triggers.
And this is what we need, early literacy, like start as soon as possible, helping children to identify their emotions and how to deal with them.
Because that is very important. Because children will feel a certain way, and sometimes they don't even know why they feel a certain way. And as parents, you have to not just teach your children about the emotion, the different emotion that they will go through. Because if you don't, they might never understand. They will grow up and never understanding these emotions, why they act certain way. And you always have to give them a space. As a father, this is one that will have to hit me. To express themselves. Open up, give them that room so that they can express themselves. Because if you don't, that emotion will just stay inside and then it might just come out at the wrong place and the wrong time.
You also have to teach them conflict resolution strategies.
Definitely.
Because a lot of persons don't know how to resolve conflict. You know, you can, as I said earlier, you step back. If you can't deal with it, you can get someone, you can get a mediator. You can walk away. I know it's very difficult. I also say there's a saying that the man who runs or walk away live to tell the tale another day. So I would say the one who runs away is the winner, not the person who stands up and fights. Because the person who stands up and fight may get killed. He might get disarmed. He might get something broken. But if you run away, at the end of the day, you'll be able to tell the story because you live. So we have to know to teach our children how to resolve conflict.
That's a tough one. In an environment in which, especially among, I was going to say boys, but I don't know if it's any different nowadays with girls, because I've seen nowadays, because of social media, you see they capture on video fights in school between boys and girls, all right? And I've seen some girl fights. So, it's in that environment where, people are edging you on, it's almost like your reputation is at stake as a young person. Oh, you're soft if you allow them to beat you up. And then you might also have, the reality is that you have gangs now, right? Even in schools, in communities. And so young people are in environments where they are being nurtured into that kind of lifestyle, right? I always remember some years ago, I might have mentioned it in a previous episode, where a young man who, at a school that we were doing some mentoring, he introduced himself as a gangster because we were playing a sort of an icebreaker activity, and they were supposed to introduce themselves with using an adjective that starts with the first letter of their name. So his first name started with G. So he introduced himself as gangster such and such, all right? And soon, a few days after that, he was actually involved in an incident where he was stabbed and killed, right? And, it really reinforced in my mind this whole issue of the nurture and nature, the environment, and the impact that it has on young people. And, that thing left me it's still so vivid in my memory. And it goes to this issue again of how do we get, especially young people, and they're in their formative years, they're trying to figure out what's going on. How do we get them to, practice practically? The Zipper acronym is a very good one, but how do you really get them to embrace this, in the real world? Because in the moment, they're just thinking to react,
We know it's very difficult, and if we sit here and say it's not, we'll be lying to ourselves. We know it's very difficult, but that's why I said you are the winner, because it's easier for you to fight, because the crowd is cheering you on. The crowd is encouraging you. But if you run away, they'll call you a wimp, right? They will call you different names. And that's why you become the winner, because it takes inner strength for you to run away. So you bring out that strength. Yeah, at the end of the day, you feel good because you did not get harm or you did not get hurt. But at the moment, they will call you a chicken. But that's okay. It's better they call me a chicken than for me to lose my life. And then we have to be careful as parents too, because you would hear some children say, Mommy say, I mustn't stand up, or if anybody does me anything, I must hit them back. So somebody may do you something, and that person might be stronger than you. And because you follow what mommy or daddy says, mommy and daddy will now be home crying. So we have to be very careful as parents what we inculcate in our children, especially from the formative years.
Indeed, an early intervention is one of the biggest things needed, but it has to be early intervention as a whole. Because I can't be at home teaching my child about emotional regulation and then you at home being aggressive, shouting and carrying on. Because our children now have to exist in the same school. And in part, yes, you want to tell your child to run from conflict, But this now makes a bully feel like they're winning and they're going to continue. And you don't want to teach a child to be timid or to run away from situations. So it has to be wholesome and collective in that we all have to be singing from the same songbook. It can be, this is what is happening here, and then there's change here, or in school I am telling them and I'm teaching them the zipper acronym, but then they go home and their parents telling them, if somebody do you anything, just box them down. It has to be intervention as a collective. We have to be able to teach our children to regulate their emotions, to talk about what is happening with them, and to understand that you don't have to react to every situation. If something upsets you, walk away, leave it alone.
But one of the things I would say too, because sometimes as parents, we say things to our children, but then they see us acting in a different way. So it's not just about telling them, this is how you act within this situation. They must see us acting the same in similar situation at home. Because they learn more from what we do than what we actually say.
So then we need also parental training or teaching parents how to regulate their emotion so that the children will observe and be able to practice.
How you going to do that? I know the challenge of having what you call it, PTA meetings. They still have those, right? In school? Yeah. But I know sometimes the challenge is that the parents that you may want to attend don't really show up. So how are you going to get to those parents? In terms of singing from the same song sheet, which is why this...
That's an unrealistic goal, and I don't think we're there.
Yeah,
so we're never going to be from the same song sheet, so to speak, because the parents that need to be... you don't want to discriminate against some people, but and it's not even so much a matter of educated versus uneducated either, because there are some persons you think are maybe educated, but they have a wrong-headed...
The parents need to be educated,
the parents on a whole, right?
About the situation.
But just getting everybody, getting the parents in particular to come, to a forum where they can get the kind of tools, the skills that they need to deal with be on the same page with the teachers and the counselors. That's a big challenge in itself.
A very big one.
Yeah, another task.
You're dealing with a society that teaches that you don't take anything from anybody.
Correct.
So half of what is happening is a learned behavior from way back. So it's a culture, basically, it's a culture within our society. Because that's why sometimes you hear about certain community, and certain communities are known for certain things. When you hear something, you say, hey, this is this community. I'm not surprised.
You won't call any names. Yeah.
No, I will not call any names. I'm not surprised. Because it's the culture within that environment. So while it's tough, so we have to get back into these communities. And we have to find ways in which we can re-educate people and how to deal with our emotions, how to deal with our issues.
As you said before, we need Jesus because a lot of these, are very ingrained behaviors, ingrained thoughts, thought patterns. As I was listening to a presentation dealing with the same anger, it was a CBT, it was something dealing with cognitive behavioral therapy. And the counselor was saying, connecting people's thoughts with their behaviors, with their feelings. There's a whole interplay there that persons, as you said before, may not even be aware, especially young people, aware of what is going on, and they're just acting out based on what they see, portrayed before them, in their communities, in their homes. That is normalized. Anger, acting out is normalized. So it's a big challenge. It says that we need to have more community-based interventions. So if we have answered this question, what can be done to address abnormal or unhealthy anger and aggression in children and youth? We touched on the acronym there, and some points. What about, let's zeroing a little bit more on adults though, because somebody cited a statistic. We were in a discussion recently, and somebody cited that in the prison population, we have 400 males and 5 females, somewhere there.
It's more than 5 now.
But relatively few females.
Yeah, the ratio is
yeah,
vast.
way out.
It's the difference.
But I was also recalling an incident at a secondary school. Was it a secondary school or primary school? Anyway, there was a fight between, I think it was parents and teachers at a school.
Yeah.
And, it says that we have some work to do with the parents as well. How do we begin to approach this?
So I'd start by saying,
Jesus take the way.
exactly, but something we need to learn as a society, anger management is crime prevention. Like, people never pay attention to this, but this is a statement I want people to hear and understand, adults and children. Anger management is crime prevention. Think about how many people would not be in prison if they knew how to better regulate their emotions. If you didn't get in that fight with that person and they end up dying, if you didn't get aggressive about a particular situation and you were so angry you went home and you pick up your weapon and you go back and you attack. If you weren't so angry about women, you won't have violated another woman in a particular manner. Anger management is crime prevention. So, firstly, we have to teach people about anger. What are the consequences? But people have to be willing to hear. Because I could sit down here and talk all I want. We can have panel discussions. We can go up on loudspeakers. We can preach it from the rooftops. If people are not ready to understand that aggression comes with serious consequences, then they're not going to say, okay, maybe I need anger management techniques. Maybe I need to regulate my emotions. Maybe I need to learn what my triggers are. Maybe I need to raise my children differently. And teach children, teach boys as well, that having emotions is natural. I remember I went to all-boys school and I asked them about the emotions. And as a collective, they said to me, Miss, we're not allowed to feel emotions. I had to say, excuse me? As boys going into men, we're not allowed to talk about or feel emotions. We have to be men. And this is at a high school level. So that is damage already done. So we have to start it at a younger age, but also as parents, as adults, we have to be willing to hear it, share it, and reteach people that dealing with their anger can prevent so many things in their life. It can be the difference in the type of home environment, in the type of children you raise, in the type of relationships that you get involved with. It makes a difference.
That's true. 2 things came to mind when you said that. I did a presentation on Sabbath about availability, and we were talking about emotions, showing up, being available emotionally. And somebody did one on sensitivity. Yeah, did sensitivity. And while it, and men's conference, we were talking to men, and some of the same points came out that men don't really show their emotion like that. And most men, when they show their emotion, the easiest emotion to show is anger. But the other thing that comes to mind is in Genesis chapter 4, where Cain, when God said to him, why is your countenance fell? If you have done well, you will be rewarded. And because he was so angry that his gift wasn't accepted, he killed his brother. And from right there, from that on, that's how human start settling their disputes. That if I'm not accepted, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to get you out of the way. You do me something, I'm going to get you out of the way. Rather than looking at how can I better myself? How can I better this situation? Okay, you're angry with me. You're displeased with me because of this. Now I have to look at myself now and thinking, how could I rise above this? So whatsoever disappointment it is, it should be something to help me to grow, to want to do better, or to get above that. Not to knock you down, but to use whatever it is as a stepping stone to better me as an individual. So when I come before you again the next time, it won't be the same thing. I would have grown from that situation. And that's our biggest problem, that we are not willing to grow. We are satisfied in staying one place. But we have to be willing to grow, and we have to be willing to take correction, wherever disappointment situations say, okay, I lose this battle, but know that I'm going to win the other because I'm going to improve. I'm going to better my game.
I've heard this phrase, hurt people. So I'm rephrasing it now to say angry people come from, well, angry people too. angry people, but also they may be coming from situations where, they were angered. They were taught that, and it's a real challenge. But again, it points to, I'm envisioning, for example, just as well you can have music and movies and, these various media and avenues, cultural expressions that evoke anger, that we can have cultural expressions that help people to, you could do, I know sometimes in counseling you do this with young people where you do role playing, where you help them to dramatize a situation where they deal with anger in a positive, kind of way. Maybe you need to have more of that kind of drama put to good use in that sense, right? To help people to deal with these things, because it's when behaviors become so ingrained, become culture, it's really hard to get people to act different. They just do what is reflex.
I want to think as adults also we need to improve in our communication and coping skills. The scripture also said, soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. I may say something to anger you. So we have to learn how to communicate effectively. You might be displeased about something, but the way in which you put it over can make the person understand, or you can make the person get even more rotted, as we will say, or get them angry. So it makes a difference in how you communicate. So we have to learn that, and coping strategies, how to cope, how to deal with the situation. And I think a lot of that is lacking in our society, the way we communicate.
And one of the biggest problems in communication is listening. Because we don't normally listen to understand. We listen most time just to reply, just to respond to what the person said. So that's one of, and through communication, listening is a vital part of communication. So many people think about communication, they just think about what you say, and not understanding, try to understand. And miscommunication.
May misinterpret what you're saying because their mind is on a certain track as well.
And you say something, and then they put them in a rage, and that's why sometimes we have to listen, and sometimes we have to ask questions, just to have clarity on what was said, so that we can reply properly, not with rage or anything of that sort, but we can respond in a way to clarify whatsoever it is. Because if you look at some of the murders, some of the things that are happening, If people sit down and talk out what took place, you know that little misunderstanding would never go to that. But because we are not willing to listen and talk it out and properly communicate to each other, it just escalates into something bigger.
One of the things that I've seen repeatedly in terms of a response technique, it ties in with the zipper acronym, is breathing. I don't know how practical it is. You can tell me.
Calms you.
How does that really work? It might say take a 5 or take a deep breath. Does that really work? But how do you make it work, effectively?
It doesn't work magic. What it does, it calms you. Because initially, if you just hear something and you react, then the anger will come out, the aggression will come out. So once you you'll get time to process, like you said, like the zipper. You count mentally in your mind, you count, and it calms you. So when you respond, you would not respond in aggression. So it's not that it's a magical or something, but it just helps to calm. I don't know, doctor might be able to.
Because what they say too, when you're angry, it carries up your blood pressure. Your heart rate just go up.
Is that the fight or flight? That's it.
Yeah,
Fight or flight.
so everything just go. So when you thought so, and you say, just calm yourself. Wait, listen. It put them back in a cool, in a
Pause in the zipper.
right. So you're more thinking. But opposed to when you're off your hand or when you're up there, somebody say, hit him, kill him, do this. Opposed to that, if you know, say, think about it for a moment. You're killing the situation without a sweat, so to speak. So
And
we have to learn these techniques when we are among others.
I don't want to think that's why they say to parents, do not punish
When you're
your
angry.
children when you're angry. Because when you're up there, you do things that you would not normally, when you're cool and calm and collect, you would not normally do. So that I think that's one of the reasons why I say parents, not generally parents, generally do not reprimand or correct or punish, when you're angry.
And so a lot of children get physical abuse that way because the parents act, impulsively, not really evaluating the situation. Anything else that we would want to say on conflict resolution? Because that's a lot of issues that take place. Sometimes it comes out in the news in terms of people getting hurt, beat up, injured. Or somebody was telling me just recently, of a case where somebody got beat up, like ganged upon, and they had to go to the hospital and seek medical attention. And right because I was preparing for this, I'm thinking, what could have been done, to diffuse that situation? Where was somebody there to say, no, let's resolve this in a better way? Or maybe somebody tried, I don't know, I wasn't there. But very often you hear about these things when they hit the news, and you think to yourself, I'm sure as counselors and pastors are counselors too, what could have prevented? What could have been done to prevent, things escalating to this point? And then you hear, people after the fact live to regret. We should have done this, or we're sorry that we didn't, that we took it so far, right? So we have a bit of work to do there. Not a bit, a lot.
Definitely. And oftentimes you find that people don't intervene because of what can happen to them. Because I've heard people intervene and end up with the worst end of the situation. I'm talking physical harm.
That's why this sometimes tells you that when you're dealing with persons who are angry, sometimes you got to have other persons with you rather than being alone, especially if it's a physical something. Because if it's a physical fight or something, you don't want to go inside there, you alone, to try to part or something, because you might get the worst of it. Because you might hold somebody and when you hold that person, the person that you hold, the other person hit that person, and the person say, wait, and the person hit you. I've seen that where people try to fight alone and end up being part of the fight. So you have to try sometimes to pull somebody else. Guys, we cannot allow this to happen. This can't happen on our watch. So you're not doing it alone. You have others. So when you have more persons saying, no guys, we're not gonna accept this, it's not gonna happen. It sometimes helps in certain situations. It may not help in all, but it can help in certain situations.
That again points to the need, from a community level, it seems like for this kind of mediation, conflict resolution at the community level. Is that, who deals with that? Or who's best placed? I know mental health has their hands full with dealing with what they have to deal with.
Respected persons within the community.
Okay.
Best people to help in community issues is community people. Because me coming in, and sometimes anger, aggression about particular situations can be deeply rooted in what is happening in your community. It could be I am carrying a beef, so to say, based on what my mother would have experienced, what my grandmother would have experienced. And me coming in as a new person in the community, I may not understand the depth of where an aggressive situation is coming from. So respected people within the community, that is something that they can try to do. See how best they can help to do some level of conflict management within particular situations so it doesn't get to a place where it's very aggressive.
This to me is where the church comes in. We cannot be in the community and not in the community. There are many churches in the community, but they are not in the community. What do I mean? That we are there physically, and we are standoffish. So we don't mingle with the process of the community.
More engagement with the...
So, because people, as much as people look at some people and they say, that's a respected individual going there. But you're not interacting with persons in the community. It's hard for you to talk to people in the community and tell them to, hey guys, cool this. Don't, when you're not having that interaction with these people. So yes, there might be some persons in your community who have voice, but you have to reach to that point where you try to associate yourself and try to talk to everybody, so that anything like this, whenever you stand up, they would say, boy, nah, I won't do it. And you hear people say, it's because this man here. No, you're not because this man here, and this woman here. So just being respectable or having a high job, having a big job or something won't just cut it. We have to be involved. We have to get into the trenches and try to help the community. But too much of us are living in the community and not doing anything for the community.
So you need to be building relationships. With the community to get some credibility, basically, when it comes to intervening. Are there certain jobs or situations that may require aggression? How do we ensure that it's properly managed or controlled? One of the things that I remember somebody asking me this some years ago. What if somebody broke into my house and, how would I defend my family? Of course, that kind of depends on if I am in a position to defend, all right? Because if somebody comes armed and I don't have, I'm not armed, what am I going to do? I may be able to defend myself and my family, but that depends on that particular scenario, right? So it was talking about the justification for self-defense, basically, under what circumstances. But the question here is extended to, you're talking about police officers, persons in the security field. You would say aggression, anger. I wonder if you should call it anger, but aggression is justified under certain circumstances, right?
The law enforcement,
security
tend
forces.
to use anger, aggression as a way to be assertive. The problem is You can be assertive without being aggressive, without being overly aggressive. But I don't think we've come to a middle ground as to where it is, because that's what we've learned from past. If I get angry, if I get loud, people are going to listen to me. There's some people who have respect for the fact that the police officer in a uniform. But Black Squad and the RRU, and they can tell you people do not respond to our uniform. So now we have to be aggressive in particular situations. And in some situations it is warranted, because that will be life or death for them. But in instances where we have to be mindful using aggression, anger as a way to be assertive, because that can be the difference in how a situation ends. I know there are going to be situations that warrant it, don't get me wrong, because some of the things that they have to deal with,
Or the people, or the personalities that...
it requires aggression.
Yeah.
It requires the anger to get you through that particular situation. But knowing how to code switch in different situations will make a lot of difference, especially with the type of individual that you're dealing with.
So it's always a tricky one. It's not something that I aspire to or ever aspired to. I've had friends, family members actually as well, who have been in the police force, and you know, you hear their stories and you realize it's not an easy road. The kind of not necessarily just the criminal elements that they have to deal with, but just the average angry person out there.
People who are
People
angry
who
for
are,
no reason.
who
Yeah.
don't, I say, no respect to our persons in a negative way. In a negative way. All right, so they have to deal with people who just have no respect or no regard for anybody, whether you're in uniform or not. And matter of fact, these things go deep too, because some persons may have had, for example, maybe they had a bad experience with a police officer, or maybe a bad cop, right? And they use that to, label, all police officers. So they just have a general negative attitude towards law enforcement, and that now becomes a real issue for the police, right? And in terms of dealing with the public. So you want your police officers not to be pushovers, all right? But you want them to be sensitive to who they're dealing with. And I guess, I don't know what level of training the police officers receive in terms of this, but that would seem to be warranted for them.
I remember a situation I saw firsthand. I saw a protest. I was looking from a distance, and an officer was approaching a certain individual, and the rage that officer was in, and there was a higher ranking police officer than him, stepped in the middle. So you step back, and the individual the other police officer was going up, he threw his hand around him, and he started talking with him. Right there, everything the situation just calmed right down. One was going with anger because, whether the person did something wrong or not, but then this officer, he was not even in his uniform. He was in his plain clothes. And he saw it, and he saw it and he ran towards the situation. And the officer realized, no, that's his senior. When he told him to step back, he stepped back. And the individual also know that this is an officer also. But then did not even react, because all the officer did was throw his hand around him and start talking with him. And then the two of them start communicating. That did escalate everything that was happening there.
Yeah, police officers do have they do de-escalation training. Some of it too is maturity as well. Like, a lot of officers have been in the police force for a very long time, so they can say what situations warrant what responses. You'd have some senior officers who will step in and say, okay, this is We don't need to get rough on this one. We can calmly sort out this situation. But we have to think of sometimes young police officers, they see things, they hear things, they've experienced things. So their first instinct is, if I go in from a more aggressive, assertive place, that will help to bring some faster resolve to the situation. Because oftentimes people in a hurry, they don't want to do the long process of standing and having a conversation and figuring out what is happening here.
So I get to the point. Yeah, so wrapping up here, I don't know if we have any closing, allow you some closing comments on this. We have touched on various factors contributing to anger, healthy expressions of anger, and unhealthy ones. The fact that anger is largely learned, and how we've also given some tips on how to deal with in immediate throes of a situation where you attempted to become angry or it can get out of hand. How to zipper that, so to speak. Thanks for that acronym. We can take that away, and we also touch a bit as well on conflict resolution. So in closing, I'll just give each person some closing remark, and then we'll wrap up for this evening.
So anger management starts with the individual.
Oh, and your comment about anger management is crime prevention. That's a very good, yeah.
I can't take credit for it. I heard it somewhere as well. So it's not I didn't coin it, but it is a very valid statement. But dealing with anger starts with the individual. So we have to start working on ourselves within our homes, within our immediate environment, and see how we can cause a ripple effect. In that we are learning to control our anger. We are learning how to deal with particular situations in particular ways, so the people around us understand that certain responses just are not acceptable. In instances where you can stand up for the vulnerable, there are people who are going to be taken advantage of because of other person's aggression. So in instances where you can stand up for another person, speak out for another person, because that could be the small difference between something ending peacefully and something ending in an aggressive manner. So be mindful of your aggression, the aggression of people around you. What are your responses, how you deal with the situation. Do not make decisions, engage in activities when you are angry. There's a saying, don't do things when you're too happy, when you're too angry, when you're too sad. And it is very relevant because you can look at, if you give yourself a breather, the difference it makes in how you react to a particular situation. So just being mindful of your own emotions, how you engage with your emotions, and the positive reaction it can have if you understand your triggers and how you are to deal with the things that trigger you in a more peaceful, effective manner.
Thank you.
So I would say, if you're in a situation that may anger you, you need to stay calm, watch your body language, practice active listening. Because once you practice active listening, that can help. So we all get angry from time to time, but again, how we deal with it makes the difference. We can have a happier society if we learn to constructively deal with our anger.
Okay, and closing, well, as was said earlier, that anger is an emotion, and some emotion that all of us will feel one time or the other, but it's how we deal with that anger, how we deal with that situation. We'll see a lot. We'll see how the outcome. We need to, there are some situations, some people will look at them and we see that they are angry all the time. And sometimes you wonder what's happening, and not realizing that because of some childhood traumas, some unresolved issues within their life, because of unforgiveness, they are always angry and so on. So I want to let anybody who's listening, free up yourself of anger. Yes, you get angry when you see injustice and so on, but learn how to deal with those situations. Get close to Jesus. Learn coping mechanism in how you deal with issues when they come. You hurt some hair, zip, breathe in, breathe out, count, walk away, live to tell the tale another day. But you have to do something because too many people are behind bars just because they act and just because they were angry at somebody. Too many people are in the graveyard just because somebody got angry and reacted to them. So be careful and learn how to deal with that emotion and allow God to take charge and control of your life.
And to coin,
Yes.
if you need anger management, reach out for help. There is nothing wrong in asking for help.
Very, very important. I was actually thinking to, as you were saying, to refer to get counseling. See somebody who can help you to deal with that, in a systematic way. Because sometimes people need structure, to resolve these issues. So I think we have covered some very good ground. I just want to plug this book. It's an anger workbook for teens, for those counselors, maybe parents, who might find this useful. There are many resources online as well that we can plug into to get help for these kinds of issues. So thanks very much to our panelists for gracing us with their presence, sharing their knowledge and experience on this very important topic. And we trust that we'll have a less angry society as we grapple with this issue and as we continue to seek God for wisdom in knowing how to deal with our various situations that may anger us, right? So all the best until our next seminar. Take care of yourselves and your families, and God bless.